Good morning, everyone. My name is Fatima Merchant, and I'm the room host for today. Hope everyone had a wonderful day one at Summit yesterday. Welcome back. A quick housekeeping note. Please put your devices on silent to avoid any disruption to your neighbors. If you have any issues with your headset, raise a hand and someone will come over and help you. Welcome to today's session. It's a level 200 session on drive profitable growth with innovative products. Learn from AWS and your software peers on how to drive innovation, avoid disruption, and grow your products in this age of data and AI. Please welcome Gabrielle to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the very first Innovation Day breakout. I feel like we should have had an AI in the title so that we too have the cue to get into the room as the other rooms do, but I do promise we will talk about AI. My name is Gabby, and I lead our growth and community programs here at AWS. And with me today, I'll have Rad, who heads up our customer solution team, as well as Tom, a senior delivery innovation specialist, both of whom will be joining me on stage shortly. Now, between the three of us, we spend a lot of time talking to customers, and whilst it is mostly effortless for us to have technical conversations, we find we spend more and more time speaking to product strategy teams. And in those conversations, we've actually observed that there's quite a few common strategies and tactics that organizations use when they are looking to grow and they're looking to scale and run successful businesses. So the purpose of today is to share some of those common strategies and tactics that organizations use, as well as share some of the programs that we have available at AWS that may help you as you put together your product strategy. Now, today's session is slightly different in that it is now what we call a super session. Super sessions are longer in duration, which means that we have time to invite two of our customers to share their stories. So I'm super excited to be welcoming Nearmap and Deputy on stage shortly. They're two of our Australian software organizations to talk about their experience and their learnings in this space. That also means that, as you might have noticed from the seating arrangements, the session is meant to be a bit more interactive. Now, we couldn't figure out the way how to do the interactive part when everyone's wearing the headphones, so instead we're going to invite you to participate in the conversation online. This is a different QR code to the one that you might have in the app or in the Summit app, but on this QR code you'll have audience participation questions that will be coming through as we are going through the deck. So I'd really welcome you to share your opinion. Answer those questions, because at the very end of the session we will be able to invite all of our speakers back on stage and we'll actually look at some of the data and look at some of the insights that you've told us through those questions. So let's get started. Now, I've been with AWS for over 8 years. This is my 8th summit actually, and in that time I've come to realize that in some ways it is probably easier to write, to build the software than it is to scale the business around that software. And we speak to a lot of our customers and we're hearing similar challenges. You have to be able to answer how you're going to grow, not just your revenue, but also your brand loyalty, your market awareness, your understanding addressable market for your product. And this may be particularly challenging when you're looking to expand to regions when you may not have physical presence in, or perhaps when you're looking to go up market and say sell to enterprises when you predominantly sell to scale-ups and startups today. Then you have to think about how you're going to remain competitive. I believe that it is really hard to scale if you can't maintain and establish product differentiation. Product differentiation truly is the basis of profitable growth. And so some of the strategies that we see here will include things like investing in a more intuitive user experience, perhaps capturing unique data about your customers, or even extracting better insights from that data as well. Then, as you scale your product, costs will usually accelerate in advance of recurring revenue. So you have to think about how you're going to fund that growth. Perhaps you have an existing cash cow product that will be able to support that, but if not, you're going to have to look for other ways to fund that scale. And then, of course, at some point, you'll have to think, when will your revenue outgrow the accelerating cost of operations? And finally, if you can't answer how doing all of that will make money for your investors, then you really need to go through all the questions again and refine the answers until you know that they do. And I'd say in the last couple of years, we had some really interesting market dynamics. I think back in 2021, 2022, absolutely everyone that we spoke to were always focusing on growth. It was kind of like that growth at all costs mentality. And we're referencing a rule of 40 here, and if you're not familiar with it, it essentially says that your growth and your net margin should equal 40. And that's what a lot of the VC and PE firms are looking for when they're looking for a growth business that is scaling nicely. In 2023, then the money got really, really tight and things got really expensive. And so a lot of our customers had to adjust how they use their cash flow. And cost optimization was the number one ask that everyone came to us for. And thanks to the cloud and to the elasticity of it, we were able to support a lot of our customers when perhaps the demand wasn't there as it used to be. But it really made a difference in how our customers had to use the operating expenses and how they invest in R&D. And I'd say in the last 9 or so months, things have started to shift again. And I think we're moving away from conservation of resources to really the new experimentation. Again, thanks to Gen AI, it does help, but it's still more selective and cautious than what we've seen before. And a good way to visualize it is through this graph here. So traditionally, the way it operated back in 21 and 22, you're in that big blue circle, maximizing on growth. And that only works when the economic conditions allow that to happen. Todd Gardner, who we adapted this graph from, has a really good quote that I'll just reference here. And he says, choosing between profit and growth, it's not easy, but it's not overly complex. All SaaS can be profitable. The one question you need to answer before picking max growth or max profit is there an objectively reasonable, data-driven, and fully funded plan to drive accelerated growth? Because when economic conditions are conducive to that, it is really easy to put the plan together and have the data that backs it. But if not, you can always influence your ability to drive profit. You can cut resources, you can scale back what you're doing, and that's essentially what we saw in 2023. So as opposed to swinging all the way back to that max growth model, we see a lot of our customers now choose the profitable growth option, that green circle in the middle, as a long-term sustainable growth. And so here comes our first audience participation question. I'd love for you to grab your phone, scan in, and let us know, where do you see your business on this graph? It'd be really interesting to see collectively, where do we currently find ourselves? Is my hypothesis correct? Am I seeing the right trends in the market? Please let us know, and like I said, we will get back to that at the very end. Now, there's a really simple formula that we like to use when we talk to our software organizations. And you'll probably recognize it from physics, but we're going to use a slightly different adaptation here. And so for M, for mass, we're going to think about the resources that we have at our business to build the software and make it available or make your product available. But I'd love for you to consider and think, how much of those resources are you actually investing in things that truly differentiate you? Because so many times we'll go into the customer conversations and we'll see that they're spending a lot of their resources, a lot of their mass on things that we would now consider undifferentiated heavy lifting. So running a virtual machine, it's really not differentiating anymore. Managing databases, managing your storage, even running your infrastructure, it really isn't a differentiating task that you should spend a lot of your resources on, because somebody can do that for you. And so the more time you spend on things that don't differentiate you, the proportionally less time you have to spend on things that truly make a difference and truly make that unique value proposition that you have for your product. Be it the intuitive user experience, be it the new insights or data that you're capturing about your customers. Now, there's another aspect to this, and that's acceleration. So once you have your product, how quickly can you apply those resources to work backwards from your customer needs and accelerate the real value that you're driving with your product? It is really, and so the combination of the differentiated mass and acceleration equals the force that you can apply to drive profitable growth. And so here comes another audience question that I'd love for you to think about. When you look back at your teams or your development organizations, how much time do you spend on tasks that truly differentiate you? Feel free to scan in the code again and There's obviously no right or wrong answer, but I'd love for you to think about how much time you're currently investing, and at the end, as a panel, we can think about how we can help you with that. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. How you think about making those investments for us when we speak to our customers, it tends to be these kind of main three areas that we focus on. The first one is product differentiation. How can you make stuff that is really distinct and unique and stands out in the market? From there, you can very quickly then think about, okay, now that I have my product, how can I make more money selling that product without necessarily having to change a line of code? And then finally, costs still matter, and a really good way to improve your top line and your margin is by reducing costs. So we'll spend a bit more time talking about improving some of the operational excellence aspects as well. And like I said, usually reducing costs means that you can also reduce COGS, and so you can really drive a meaningful difference into that Rule of 40 graph that I talked about earlier. So with that, I'd like to pass it to Rad to take us through the first strategies and tactics that he sees when it comes to product differentiation. There's a clicker.
Hey folks, good morning. All right, let's dive right into it. So driving digital product differentiation. So what we're really seeing in this space is really four techniques that we're seeing in this space. So first of all, there's still a lot of opportunity to think big with new products. And so to give an example of this, we recently worked with an Australian security hardware organization that was looking at changing their revenue model from one-time revenue to reoccurring revenue. And so working back from their customer needs, we came up with this concept of digital concierge, where we could actually, on behalf of their customers, accept packages as well as identify security threats while their customers are away from home. And so we built that together with the customer. Customer launched that last year and won an innovation award at CES last year. Another area that is very common in my conversations with customers today is innovating through customer experience. And so I think improving the customer experience is always a sure way to really differentiate your product. And in this space, a lot of the conversations I'm seeing right now is around how do we improve the onboarding experience for our customers, particularly as we see more and more organizations moving to a product-led approach, and as they scale into different geographies where they may not have the luxury of having a field force that's able to onboard the customers onto the product. And so in those cases, the conversations we're really having is how do we reduce the time from when the customer finds out about your product to when they get value out of your product. And so we're actually now pivoting, we're seeing a lot of pivot around this as well. So starting with helping with some of the jobs to be done first, and then actually asking the customer to register for the product. And then, of course, in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of excitement around AI ML, and so obviously it is all about how do we put AI and ML into to work in our product, and then how do we further help that with using data as well. So let's dive into that now. So really, when we talk about AI and ML use cases, what we're really seeing is two buckets of use cases. So the first bucket being operational improvement, and the second bucket being building that into your product. And in my mind, they're almost sequential because most customers start with that operational improvement. Now, the other thing to mention here is, and the bucket that I'm seeing emerge here is reinvention. And we'll talk about product reinvention a little bit later on. When it comes to operational improvement, these are essentially low-risk use cases, maybe something like marketing content generation where you still have a human in the loop and you're able to make that final decision if the content is just right before you launch it. What I really like about that as well is it gives you an opportunity to really grow the skill set and capabilities inside your organization on some of the low-risk use cases before you move on to the higher-order use cases and build that into your product. Now, when we talk about building things into your product and building AI ML specifically into your product, there's a lot of good use cases here. I'll talk about a personal use case actually that only happened last week, and that is around streamlining user experience. So I recently bought some sneakers online, in fact the ones I'm wearing right now, and they came damaged, right? And so the first thing when I looked at them, I thought, I've got to go through the return process. So I've got to take a photo, got to start return process, got to print my returns receipt, got to go to the post office, package it up, and ship it off. And so that process is quite daunting. But when I actually jumped into the app in a completely natural language and completely automated, I was able to state my intent, and then I was quickly offered a discount in the form of store credit or return. And so obviously I picked discount in form of store credit, and I was back on there and shopping within seconds. So it is a really good way to use and streamline that user experience for your customers. Now, extending that further is how do you use data to help with your AI ML, and also so there are a lot of conversations that I'm having right now is customers really talking about, hey, we have all this data, we have all these customers, we know our business really well. How would we reinvent our business model if we were starting from scratch today with all the technologies that are available to us? So that's a lot of where the conversations are starting today. So hands up, who's heard of speculative design? Okay, a few people. So speculative design is really useful here because you can start with, hey, what are all the possible scenarios, and then what are the probable scenarios? And I think it really just starts you off to think about, hey, how can we actually rethink this user experience? The other thing I'm seeing is using behavioral and user data in your that you have from your how people are using your product, and then being able to actually put digital nudges in along your product to help you with guiding your customer through that experience. And then finally, creating executable artifacts. And actually pinning that back to creating new content as part of that first point as well, I recently worked with a research customer who was able to use their previous research collateral to basically produce new and novel research insights and help researchers write new research papers, which was really, really cool use case. Cool. So we're going to go through a few examples to really put this into practice right now. So the first example I wanted to share is from BGL. Some of you may have heard their talk on stage 1 yesterday, and they actually spoke about how they're using agentic AI to help self-managed super fund customers honor their tax commitments. But the use case I wanted to talk about today was, so for those that don't know, BGL is a financial services organization in the financial services software industry, and they serve about 12,000 customers globally. And so what they found out working back from their customer needs is that customers were processing about 26 million of pages of financial data manually, and that was costing them about $1.75 per page. And so what they wanted to do is use AI and ML to reduce the time it takes the customers to go through that financial data and obviously give immediate value to the customers. And so they used Textract. And so to Gabby's point earlier on around F equals MA, there is no point of using your M or using your team's time to build something like Textract, which is an OCR service from Amazon. You can just get that off the shelf, and that fast tracks you through to the outcome. So they use Textract to actually build a solution for their customers and offer it to their customers. Further to this as well, they also were able to use SageMaker and make another product line available to their customers, a brand new product line called SmartDocs 360, which gave their customers the ability to further make adjustments to their document processing needs. Cool. So we don't believe that the path to innovation is ever a linear one, and we believe that experimentation is a massive part of how you get and discover new differentiating products. So if we can have your phones out again and give us some feedback around how often are you experimenting in your product. Cool. So another organization that does this really well or infuses AI into their products really, really well is Canva. So as I play this video, if you can all just silently in your head count the number of examples where Canva uses AI to delight their customers. Awesome. So hands up if you've seen more than 5 use cases of AI to delight Canvas customers. Leave your hand up if you saw more than 10. Yeah. So I think on different times I've counted it's between 11 or 12 different moments there that they are able to delight their customer. Now, for those that made the keynote yesterday, we actually had Canva in the keynote, and they spoke about a few of the things they're doing with AWS and AI. And I think for me personally, like there was 2 key takeaways from that. One takeaway is just how much they're able to scale to 100 million customers within 3 weeks with some of these AI products. And that really, for me, underlines the importance of speed. And so at Amazon, we say speed matters disproportionately. And that is true for all the innovation. The second thing that I find quite insightful from Canva is just how they're thinking about AI. So the question that the CTO posted was, how can we accelerate Canva's mission using AI? And so that brings us to the next question. Are data and AI an integral part of your product and business innovation? Cool. All right, and with that, I have the pleasure of introducing Deep, who's a Chief Product Officer at Deputy, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how his team at Deputy use some of these concepts and apply some of these concepts to drive the incredible growth they've seen at Deputy.
Hi there, I'm the Chief Product Officer at Deputy. Deputy, if you haven't come across it before, is a B2B software company. We serve hourly work businesses like retailers, restaurants, healthcare businesses that predominantly have hourly workers. We're the people platform for those businesses, from payroll to HR, onboarding, applicant tracking system, scheduling, rostering, award interpretation, and all cloud-based, mobile first, for businesses that are very large, tens and thousands of employees, to small businesses. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we talked about profit and the drive towards profit recently, and also about innovation. And I'm going to tell a bit of a story on how you can build products that both help your customers be hugely profitable, but also innovative at the same time. And that there is a product area where the two meet. So I'll tell you a bit of a story. I mean, we've all been to a busy cafe that has far too many people in line, and not having enough people rostered can have a material impact in the amount of profit you drive. People see a long line and can't be bothered and go to the next cafe. That has a material impact on the amount of sales that you can convert in your retail or hospitality business. Similarly, if you staff far too many people in a non-demand heavy time, that also has a huge driver in the profits of your business. Your costs are too high and not matched to demand. And where we believe, and we've been building products that profit and innovation intersect, is around just making sure the right number of people are working, using AI, ML, algorithms to hug the demand curve, to have the perfect number of people working on when demand is surging or low. It's a unique place where you can drive innovation, differentiation, and where ROI for our customers can meet. Our customers have very thin margins. If you go to any hospitality or retail business, every percentage of margin really matters. And it is possible to build products that meet both profit needs and innovation. On the innovation side, through AI and ML-driven scheduling, you no longer actually have to point and click and create any schedules. It gets created on your behalf with an engine always under the hood, optimizing how many people should be working. So how does this work? Well, Deputy, and through point-of-sale systems or other demand driver systems like foot traffic, goes and gets demand data and ingests that data. It then adds context. Might be weather, local events, promotions that you're running in your business. It runs the AI ML time series forecast behind the scenes to predict how that demand will look like next week, next month, 2 months from now. And then applies what you tell your business on how labor works in your business. For every $100 of sales, I need one coffee maker, a barista. For every $200 of sales, I need a person working in cashier. And by combining your business rules and what's predicted for the future, we can generate completely optimal, profitable schedules that are aligned to your business needs. It's, again, where product innovation and customer profitability can be driven. McKinsey did this survey to a bunch of frontline businesses about a year ago that showed with optimization, without optimization, how much free time or wasted time was eliminated. I mean, most employees want to go into work and create value and produce during the day. But when you create manual schedules, you end up with these big pockets of time that are inefficient. That might be idle time between jobs. Through digital optimization, you can ensure every block of time throughout the day is optimized to the minute. So what does Deputy do under the hood? First, once that demand data gets ingested into Deputy, we use ML to generate a forecast for what will happen in the future. But at the same time, we get that businesses don't only offer it off of a forecast. The manager can go and adjust that forecast if they needed to, and the system will learn from that. There might be a competitor that opened down the street and sales will be down for the next few weeks. You can adjust those forecasts up and down and the system will learn from it. At the end of the day, labor has some basic kind of first principles units of work. It may be in your business that there's certain relationships between transactions or dollars and the work that needs to happen in that. We create a human editable interface to set up how labor works in your business so that Deputy can understand for that forecast you have in the future how much staff you need to create. That then gets generated into staffing needs. You take the forecast, apply your labor model on top of it, and generate for every hour by hour, day by day, how many people do you need working at every particular job function or job code or job type in the company. You then run our auto scheduling capability, and we're able to produce, using AI and algorithms, and running hundreds and thousands of simulations behind the scenes, an optimal schedule. So what used to be, in the old world, creating a schedule from scratch and publishing that to your staff and hoping for the best and maybe copying last week's schedule to this week, this is a first principles data-driven schedule that's created from the forecast and from the exact labor needs that you know that are required to run your business. We've seen from many customers labor cost savings of 5 to 10%. For a large quick service restaurant or a retailer or a chain, you could imagine 5 or 10% savings can be millions and millions of dollars. These are businesses that are running payrolls of hundreds and $200 million of revenue of cost. And so every hour, every wastage saved is going to the bottom line. So not only is the team at our customer saving time and energy creating that schedule from scratch, they're also generating maximal profits by having just the right number of people working, no more, no less. It's not just optimal scheduling where we think profit and innovation meet. Another thread I want to pull on is that we're seeing such a market demand from our customers on streamlining their operations. If you walk into any retailer or a hospitality business, they're not in front of a computer. They're working on running their business. And so we have been investing significantly into a all-in-one multi-product platform. Deputy first started a long time ago as just a scheduling and rostering platform and has expanded to HR, training, performance management, and all of this means that our customers can save time. People have integration fatigue, jumping between different systems. They're looking for their workflows to be streamlined in one place. And we're seeing our customers be able to operate on leaner staff, one less HR person or an HR team that can scale better as the business grows and be a leaner, meaner team by going into this multi-product product offering. And so that's been a big innovation and drive of the multiple product offering that helps our customers run leaner and run more scalably as their business grows. We've also been embracing the Gen AI traction that's been happening, and we really view this world of agents and assistants as another big unlock of where innovation and profitability meet. In early customer testing, we're already seeing that a concept of an assistant where you can delegate entire jobs you might do, whether that's approving a timesheet, whether that's reviewing a candidate when they apply for a job, can be a huge driver of efficiency and profit for our customers because they can delegate work that was largely mundane and not high value to creating a competitive differentiation for their business. And so yet another kind of example of how profitability and innovation can meet. So we view Deputy, the name Deputy came from being second in charge, as being a really crucial helper or second in command to driving innovation, but also profitability at our customers. We're not just there to solve jobs and workflows, we're there to be a teammate for each of our customers as they grow and scale so they can operate more lean, more effectively, and more profitably over time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Deep, for sharing that story. And what I really like there as well is that mission of supercharging Deputy's customers' profitability and obviously productivity. Cool. Okay, so a few different mechanisms that Amazon can help with here. So we work with customers on a daily basis in this space, and so to help with your kind of a use case prioritization and diving deeper into your different use cases, we've got a couple of programs working backwards engagements, executive visioning, and then the roadmap acceleration program. And then to help you with actual build out, we've got the PACE program, which is prototyping and cloud engineering team that can help you build some of the initial MVP. And we also got generative AI innovation center, which can help with that initial MVP as well. And then finally, we got venture innovation program, which connects our enterprises looking for SaaS solutions and our SaaS customers. Okay, so you've heard a little bit about product innovation. I will now invite Gabby back onto the stage to talk about another way you can drive top-line growth, which is expanding your top-line growth.
Perfect. Thanks, Fred, and thank you, Deep, as well. So once you have your product strategy in place and you have your unique and distinct product offering, being able to expand that to larger market or to new markets is a great way to accelerate growth and increase your top line as well. So you can do that by geographical perspective. You can move that to new markets. Like I said earlier, you can think about moving up into more enterprises, even though sometimes those enterprises may require some additional capabilities to support them at the higher level. This is where we'll also see customers invest in market adjacencies, expanding to adjacent industries that potentially solve a similar problem, and then also investing in net revenue, dollar retention in the products that you're selling as well. I'd say geographical expansion is probably the number one ask for a lot of our customers here in Australia and New Zealand. I think we'll all agree we have a limited growth potential with 35 million people here and even less in New Zealand. And so most often a lot of organizations have to think about expanding pretty quickly. And of course it's challenging. You have to think about new customer demands. Most often there's going to be new competitors that you're going to have to deal with. There's a lot of different regulations and tax and legal systems that you're going to have to navigate. And then of course even scaling your technology to open in new AWS regions comes with its own set of challenges as well. Transitioning to a product-led growth is something that we see fairly common here. And then of course in situations like we were back in 2023 when economic conditions aren't conducive to growth, focusing on your existing customers that you already have and making sure that you're retaining their business is another tactic that we see fairly common here as well. I'd say M&A is probably the most interesting here for me. And it's interesting because even though we saw the mergers and acquisitions for market adjacencies, the deal value has actually gone down over the last couple of years. The volume, especially in that small to mid-market acquisitions, have actually remained pretty steady and even grew slightly. And so my interpretation of that is that whilst we've seen software companies actually make investments, they're making tactical investments to growing into a new industry, and not necessarily paying the price premium, but making sure that they can support their revenue retention by offering additional capabilities to a new set of customers. And so one particular example of somebody that's done that really, really well is our local Australian software company called Nearmap and their recent acquisition of BetterView. And so with that, I'd like to pass it to Dr. Michael Bewley, who is a VP of AI and Computer Vision at Nearmap, to tell their story. Over to you. Sorry.
Thanks for the intro, Gabby. So let's start, obviously, with a little background in who we are and what we do. At Nearmap, the crux of it is that we design and build the world's best aerial imaging systems. We put them in little tiny planes, we fly them over cities multiple times a year, and we're capturing about 4 countries, kind of up to 95% of the population. It's all about urban environments and urban areas. We've been around for 18 years now, which I guess means we're pretty grown up. We capture a lot of imagery, and we've actually expanded beyond there. We do AI at massive scale on top of our imagery to produce insights, really automated maps of where things like roof condition issues and solar panels and tree growth and all that kind of thing are. And then we've got apps and integrations and things on top of that. We've got a fair bit of data. You'll see slides that say 50 petabytes and 100 petabytes and things. It changes quickly, so it's roughly in that range, which is lots. This is who we are, but it's not how we began. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story of how we went from being that aerial imagery company built on cool camera tech to a location intelligence organization to one with deep, nuanced products in the property insurance space. We were all things to all people. And we still are. We have imagery and AI for all sorts of businesses and organizations. But the depth and detail of our product offering has led us to be a key partner for 6 of the top 10 US insurers and to have a rapidly accelerating role in that vertical. Firstly, I'll start with what is essentially a community service announcement for me. Drones, satellites, how do they fit in? Let's answer that question. So aerial imagery is the sweet spot for urban monitoring. Drones are fantastic when you want to monitor a building or a whole cluster of buildings or a farm or a mine or something like that. If you're capturing 150 million buildings multiple times a year, you are several orders of magnitude away from being practical with drones, right? It's not even a starter with the little quadcopter things that fly around. And the big military ones are way more expensive than just getting small planes. Then what about satellite? It's great coverage, you do it again and again, but it's pretty useless for the kind of thing we want to do, which is monitor urban environments. On the left, you'll see an example of top-tier satellite imagery. They call it 30 centimeters. It's not really. There's a lot of atmosphere. There's some kind of trickery and maths that goes into it that means it's not true 30 centimeters. On the right, you'll see 4.4 centimeters from one of our planes. If your business is in understanding what's going on with buildings and rooftops and all that kind of thing, it's just satellite does not play in this space. So this is why we do aerial imagery and why that's our core. I've been at Nearmap since 2017. That's when the machine learning journey began. At that point, we were an imagery company, and I came in and asked the awkward question of, hang on, I think my job is to stop people looking at pictures. We were trying to automate a lot. You had machine learning startups coming around, trying to find the best data, which was our data. We had customers saying, can you automate things more? I'm looking at too many pictures. I got a couple of year runway to build core technology to do machine learning on top of our imagery properly. You know, build a deep and rich tech stack. Then we moved into the customer space, we launched products, we launched multiple generations of production AI system in collaboration with customer feedback. And it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when we realized that property insurance was this special vertical where the customers were just more keen, more excited, more nuanced around how they were trying to drive our product roadmap. And we decided we needed to go all the way with that particular vertical while not kind of giving up on the other things. Property insurance was the next big thing. There were actually also a cluster of insurtech companies that had emerged, interestingly starting from the opposite direction. We started with cool cameras and said, what can we do with this, and built up and ended there. They started with insurance and said, well, how can we serve these customers? What apps and software do we build? And let's do some machine learning, and now we need aerial imagery. So you have this sort of intersection of the two that have grown from opposite ends. And in December 2023, we purchased one of these companies. We acquired it, BetterView. And the idea was that we could massively accelerate our ambitions for growth in this space by grafting on that customer experience, the trusted software products that BetterView had in market for a number of years, the regulatory approved risk models that they'd built on top of machine learning on aerial imagery, and just the general kind of vertical know-how that they had, and grafting that onto our deep tech stack. That was the intent. What happened? So we refreshed our promise to the property insurance market to being from imagery to insights to answers. We weren't just selling content, so you can do imagery as content, and then you can do AI, and we do automated maps and say, oh, well, we can just sell that as content too, and people can build stuff on it. And we still do that today, but in this vertical, we wanted full-fledged software solutions that met their precise needs, rather than saying, go and build a bunch of stuff on top of our kit before it becomes useful. Now, it takes time to round out these sort of nuanced solutions to serve customers in a space like this and to establish trust. So it was really, really helpful to bring BetterView into the stable and integrate them. Now, what does this look like in practice? Well, before the acquisition, we had this imagery and AI as content. We had an app, which was a great general user kind of mapping application, which is still very useful for many use cases. We had super fast APIs, but now we've got like 5 sub-verticals. And these sub-verticals not only are starting to have their own product lines and go-to-market efforts, but their own kind of technology solutions as well. Like you have to get really nuanced if you really want to go deep in a vertical and I guess claim all the space that your products are capable of claiming. It's amazing the nuances that you need to add that you think, well, why don't they just do that? Like, we'll do the hard bit and that bit's easy, we'll just leave it for them. Don't do that. You've got to do those extra bits if you really want to accelerate in a vertical. On the tech front, so talking about M&A from a tech perspective is fascinating, because I'm on the tech side of the business. I run the AI group at Nearmap. You make a choice when you do an acquisition. Do you say, do we run these tech stacks separately and kind of let them each keep rolling, or do we integrate them? And the mission here was to integrate them deeply. Now, from an AI perspective, this is a fascinating project. You've got startup-style approach of organically grown zoo of a couple of dozen models that have grown up. You've got the core Nearmap architecture where we've got a single deep learning model that we've built over years. And so you're pouring in the labels from BetterView into the Nearmap architecture. You're using their models to teach our model things. And what we ended up with was the 6th generation Nearmap AI system had basically absorbed the intelligence from the BetterView models into that single deep learning model, producing things like this that you see on this slide, all out of one deep learning model. And there's a page 2. It's about 130, 140 different things. And the thing that BetterView had done really nicely was build risk models on top of this kind of data. So not just is there a swimming pool or is there rust on that roof, but what's the likelihood of this roof being damaged in an event of a hurricane? And so we saw a huge uptick in value from grafting those risk models, which have regulatory approval in many states for pricing usage, grafting it onto the Nearmap, the new Gen 6 Nearmap AI model. Yeah, it was a well-made match when we brought these two together. Now I'm going to move on to a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. This is kind of one of the sub-verticals within property insurance. It also serves other industries. We have local governments, we have disaster response agencies, but what we do after a disaster. So many of you will be familiar with the LA fires from January this year. I don't know how many of you twigged that it was mid-winter for them. We actually often kind of borrow their planes and stuff in California in summer, so there is actually some pretty strong Australia-California interaction. There were 16,000 destroyed homes in that fire. It was incredible, and us here, probably 2019 is the last time we had bushfires that really were in the broad collective audience. It's been very wet since then, which has been great for not having fires, but there's been a lot of vegetation growth, which, by the way, we've mapped. We need to be ready for events of this scale here. So our planes were up in the air so quickly that homes were still burning. You can't just wait for later because people are depending on this data to get in, respond, deal with what's going on the ground. So you're sending the planes up fast. You can't just send them up once because you get things like this. It's really challenging conditions. There's smoke, there's fire, there's haze. In hurricanes, you get similar sorts of things. So you're flying again and again to get that gap in the smoke. And then you see devastating imagery like the one on the next slide, where literally entire suburbs are being wiped off the map. My dad was messaging me when this stuff was coming up saying, I've got a friend who lives there and he wants to know if his house is still there. And fortunately in his case it was, but yeah, it's very emotional working through this stuff as you kind of see individual homes and then you're zooming out to suburbs. With the AI, we've got a fully automated AI system that we've got rapid imagery processing and rapid AI on top of it that only takes 2 or 3 hours typically. 22 flights, covering 46,000 odd buildings. You can see the green and the red. No prize for guessing that the green are the undamaged buildings and the red are the, in fire, they're basically either destroyed or undamaged, different from hurricane. We mapped in this very rapid way 15,500 damaged or destroyed buildings. Compare that to the official stats of 16,000, which typically come out weeks of analysis and things after that. This is a powerful story. You can see even shots from before the disaster to immediately after it, and you see the change. And then just the next one is kind of the surprise. Only a few months later, you're already seeing the recovery start to occur. You're seeing construction sites pop up. You're seeing buildings start to be repaired. The imagery and the AI is so powerful to tell this story, and I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, wow, this stuff must be so useful. You could do so many things with it for disaster response agencies, for insurers trying to pay out a premium really quickly when they know that the building's already destroyed. But if you want to actually make that work, you can't just say, here's the content, go nuts. On the left, you've got one of the products that was kind of co-built with the Better View team and Nearmap was impact response system, where you basically take a property insurer's portfolio of properties that they manage, and you're building a live triage system saying, of your properties, these are the damage ratings that we're predicting on each of them, helping them triage and respond to each. Do I need to pay that one out? Do I need to send in an assessor on the ground? Is it partial damage? Do I send an advanced assessor? Do I send a less experienced one? And then imagery being shown in different ways in different applications. This is a nuanced product suite. So our technology, like our cameras and the AI, are at the heart of our products, but there's 1,000 potential verticals like this one. The geospatial industry as a whole has not solved this well. Largely it's kind of imagery, and then other companies will do stuff and you're hoping the dots get connected. It's really, really hard to do the steel thread from deep technology through to a customer vertical, and M&A certainly helped us leapfrog, I think, years ahead in this case. And there is such an array of opportunities on the horizon, so there's plenty of growth and excitement left to have. I'll finish up there, and I think I'm handing back to Gabby. Thank you.
What a powerful piece of technology, hey? Thank you for that, Mike. So how can AWS help? Well, we have a bunch of programs which I'll have a wild guess the majority of you probably wouldn't have heard of any of them, but hopefully after this you will, and hopefully some of them might come in useful that you can utilize for your business. So the very first and really quite unique is our Global to China program, specifically designed, as the name suggests, to help businesses expand into China. And the program itself provides a lot of legal, commercial, as well as technical advice when it comes to expanding your business there. We'll pick on Canva again, we always seem to pick on them, but when they looked to grow into China region, they were able to utilize the program and the benefits of it, which allowed them to launch in the region within 3 months of them expressing interest. And again, if you think back to that equation of F equals M times A, the ability to accelerate your way to entering new markets, again, gives you a really good chance to drive the recurring revenue income coming earlier, and so it really is a win-win situation for them and for us. The second program is our Global Passport program, and that program was actually distinctly unique in our team. So it's our software team that's designed with this program, where we noticed the majority of our customers are really interested in expanding internationally. We have European customers wanting to go to the US, we have US companies trying to get into Asia Pacific, there's a lot of interest in Middle East right now with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and so again, having some business, commercial and technical advice and market readiness through this program allows you to accelerate your expansion and support some of those dreams that you may have entering new markets. We actually closed nearly 200 engagements across the world on the Passport program, and we had 20 customers here in ANZ take benefit of this program in the last 2 years as well. The third one is Marketplace. I hope you might have heard the name. Actually have a booth on the expo floor as well. It's our place to buy third-party software, and so if you are a software provider, the ability to have a low-cost channel by selling via Marketplace, especially when you're looking to support your growth ambitions internationally, is a really good way to allow customers overseas to buy your product. Local Measure, another local Australian customer, have actually attributed a lot of their success to Marketplace, able to sell that globally, and then also they allowed their consulting partners resell their product on Marketplace, so that they were able to kind of reap all the benefits with really low cost. You might have heard they've actually recently successfully exited Desk, which I think is just an awesome Australian success story that we like to share. M&A Accelerator is probably a really not well-known program. So it's a program that's designed to help if you're looking to make acquisitions to another company. And so we will have a bunch of advisors who will be able to support you in assessing how difficult would it be to actually integrate the technology, the existing infrastructure to yours. And like Michael said, it actually does come with its own set of challenges. And so again, by going through that program and by utilizing some of these resources, you can simplify and hopefully accelerate some of the decision making that is involved when you're looking to acquire another company. And the final one is ISV Accelerate. It's another program that if you are already building and working with AWS, it's a really good program to build on top of it and integrate into our ecosystem with co-sell opportunities with AWS and AWS sellers as well. So all of these programs are available to all of our customers. Feel free to connect with your account representative or your account teams that you're working with to see how they could apply to you and your organization. Okay, last component, improving operational excellence. Costs still matter, and if you are thinking about improving margin, reducing costs is a really good way to improve margin. So with that, I'll pass it back to Rad one last time to talk about some of the tactics that he sees there. Thanks, Rad.
All right, I can see everyone's excited about operational excellence. And of course, we all know that operational excellence, when done right, can actually accelerate your growth. It can improve your customer experience, but it can also reduce your costs. And so, apologies. And so the first component of that is cost optimization. And so there's some really simple things you can do from a cost optimization perspective to get rewards and benefits of that immediately. So the first thing I would say is reserved instances and savings plans would probably be the easiest way to get immediate cost savings. If you're using a lot of spiky compute, I would also suggest looking into spot instances to reduce your cost by up to 90% when compared to on-demand instances. And then we go into the technology optimization. And technology optimization is really where you may need to do some code changes. But this, talking about technology optimization, we can have a look at things like Graviton, which can reduce your cost by up to 25% and also has some really cool sustainability benefits as part of that as well. And then, of course, embracing the cloud-native SaaS solutions or SaaS architecture rather will help you really get the benefit of your team moving and working on the top opportunities and top product improvement opportunities. And then finally, increasing resilience can help you with that stability. So we'll dive into some of these using an example. So the first example I wanted to talk about was Playvox. So Playvox is a technology company in workforce management and quality improvement space in the contact centers. And so what they've recently done is they've done a modernization program where they actually modernize their whole technology stack onto serverless. And so what this has allowed them to do is actually redeploy all of the engineering staff into building more on the product side and building more product integrations with the other contact center technology, which has then enabled them to grow to new customers. This has also enabled them to go up by 300% in their data processing needs and also reduce their costs by 5 times. And so when we think about modernization, what I would really say is, first thing to think about is what business benefit are you going to get from modernization? And so when I think about this, it's if I think about, hey, I'm not really using all of my M on the most productive and the most innovative tasks in my organization, well, then I should probably be thinking about going to cloud-native technologies and going to serverless. If, for example, your time from data to insight is not quick enough and you want to improve that, then you should be talking about managed data and managed analytics. And so a really good way to think about this is to use the kind of mental model of the fish model. And so for those who haven't heard of the fish model, it is really the approach to model out your revenue and costs as you go through your SaaS transformation. And so if your modernization efforts are not driving your revenue up or are not decoupling your costs from your revenue, then you probably need to rethink that modernization effort. And then the final topic there is resilience. And so I would urge everyone to think about resilience as soon as possible. Building resilience on later is really, really expensive. So designing that in, and as we heard again, not to overuse the Canva example, but at the keynote yesterday, they spoke about how they designed that resilience and serverless as soon as possible in their product thinking and architecture. Building that resilience in and thinking about resilience as early as possible is super important. And so there's 2 topics that you really need to think about here. The first topic being high availability. So this is how you're going to help your customers have a completely seamless experience through common failures. So we all know failures happen all the time. So how do you make sure that your customer experience is completely seamless through that? And that will really, you'll see, I've seen organizations that invest money into resilience, especially high availability, really drive their NPS up. And so the other thing that to look at is disaster recovery. And so if you're selling to enterprises, disaster recovery will probably come up in your first sales conversation. And so having a really good story around disaster recovery can obviously help open up new opportunities as well. And so how can Amazon help with this? So first of all, we've got optimization and licensing assessment program, which can help you assess all of your licensing that you have today, and then help you save through maybe going to open source or going to managed services and so on and so on. And so I've seen in cases where customers were running on the Windows stack, I've seen savings of up to 77% here. Another program that we have is our SaaS Factory team. So the SaaS Factory team can actually help you with both technology and business transformation to SaaS. And then the other one is Modernization Acceleration Program. Having ran this program for about 5 years now and being part of the program for about 5 years now, the feedback I get from customers all the time is we've been able to do more in 6 weeks than we would have otherwise been able to do in 6 months. So I would strongly encourage you to look into this program. And then, of course, we've got our technical field community who can help you walk through all of your resilience needs and really balance that out with your cost. All right, so we spoke about a lot of different options, and obviously in my strong belief, I think that product differentiation, driving top line growth, and cost optimization and operational excellence, you need a combination of all of those to really drive your top line growth. However, this can be really, really complicated. And so over the last 10 or so years, we've built a bunch of different programs to help you with this. And so if you're not aware of any of these programs or need help with any of these topics, please reach out to your AWS team and we can help you with that. So now, we're going into the fun part of the session where we're all going to come back on stage and we're going to have a panel discussion, and we're going to use some of the research that we've gathered in this session. So stick around to see your answers and also have a discussion around some of those answers. Now, we will need a couple of minutes to set up. So I'm going to start a timer. During this time, if you can just turn to your neighbor, introduce yourself, and discuss your biggest profitable growth challenges. And then as this timer finishes, please put your headphones back on and we'll have a chat.
The gap between us and lunch,
Maybe we can cut the time and just say, because like everyone's kind of left.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you want to just cut the time?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know. Some people are talking. I don't know.
They look like they're actually chatting.
Can you hear us?
To match with the silent disco.
Okie dokie. As we start to wrap things up.
I think I have to tell people to put the headphones
We're
back
on?
on. Thank you. People have to put the headphones back on.
Oh yeah. I'll just get everyone to put their headphones back on. Hopefully you guys can all hear me now, if we just go through to the next slide. But that was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much to everyone who spoke. And thank you to everyone who chimed in on the Slido polls. We've got some insights coming through, and I want to kind of dive deeper into some of the responses that you all shared, and kind of thinking about some of the strategies that we might be able to help with that. And so I guess even just thinking about the last one, Gab, I want to start with you. You know, we just asked everyone about, you know, their biggest profitable growth challenge, right? And if you work a lot with customers, I guess I'm keen to hear from you around like maybe where you've seen a customer overcome a challenge while your time at AWS. What was it that they did that wasn't even shared earlier today?
Well, I think I'll actually say the things that has been shared earlier, but I think the biggest thing that I find a lot of our customers struggle with at the moment is either A, where do I start, or B, what do I do? I think a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas on what they want to do, especially with AI and Gen AI in particular. And I think prioritizing what would be the most impactful product feature is probably something that we hear a lot of customers come to us with. So like, hey, like there's all these great ideas that I have, or my team wants to build a lot of stuff, how do I actually do it? And so one of the ways that we help them overcome some of that is through our roadmap acceleration program. It really helps distill like what would be the most valuable feature to focus on, what would drive the most impact to the customers. And so I think that's one that probably we spend quite a lot of time with a lot of customers at the moment, I'd say. That's one of the bottlenecks that I hear.
Yep. And so Deep and Mike, both representing product and technology, what about from your guys' world? Any kind of insight on like the top strategy you kind of, you know, maybe even a challenge you're going through right now, how you're looking at that? Maybe Deep, start with you.
Yeah, we try to experiment and bring forward experiments as much as possible. That might be coming up with a prototype and putting that in front of customers to get signals on. So before you even start figuring out how to build it, just get the concept in front of people and get them to weigh in. Part of that is also surveying. So like you know, asking people a long list of different options that you can go and build to give us stronger signals. So those two help us triangulate on what we might want to go build. Experimenting with prototypes and surveys before even writing any code.
One quick one I just want to ask before we go over to Mike, because I'm sure Mike's got a good vision of this as well. Has, I guess, the role of AI in prototyping, has it changed your product lifecycle as well?
Yeah. I mean, most of the vibe coding tools out there aren't good enough for production use, but are really good for prototypes and concepts. So we have been using a lot of those tools to get in front of a concept that you can point and click around, and it's better than a Figma prototype, using stuff like V0 from Vercel. So that's been really good, actually.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love V0. I've used a lot of that myself. Mike, over to you. What about you?
Look, I mean, as far as experimentation goes, I think one of the biggest unlocks is actually around the boring stuff of permissions and budget. Right, I've worked at a really big bank, I've worked at Nearmap, and you can just see night and day differences between what individual devs can explore and do, depending on how much you trust them. Right, if you're in a situation where you've got to spend 6 months to spin up a virtual machine to try some stuff out, versus you've got permissions to do whatever you want, and there's a balance, right, with budget and security and that kind of thing, but at Nearmap our philosophy is really to have pretty high trust in our developers. So I mean, I've got mid-level devs who, in theory, I think could spin out a 10,000 node cluster for a bit, but they don't, because they understand what they're doing, they care about the costs, and we've got a high degree of transparency around what we spend. So yeah, I think I find a really successful aspect of our experimentation is just telling people, we trust you, understand what you're spending, and have high transparency around that, and obviously we'll put the security guardrails around it, but that lets all sorts of wonderful things bubble up that wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, I think the trust is an interesting kind of combination, right? Trust to do the right thing, trust to fail, and then kind of give you that confidence to one. More experimentation is always, you know, so different as you enter different businesses or verticals. Some of them have more constraints, whether it's regulations and so forth, versus, you know, let's all just go out and have a crack at it. If we think about some of the questions that we asked and go back to the graph, we had quite a bit of a broad sense there or response from everyone, but Gab, we had a couple of people who were operating in a bit of a dangerous zone. What kind of insight or information have you got for them to kind of help them get out into one of those other quadrants there that might be more suited to being more profitable and growth?
Yeah, I think that dead zone, I really hope that nobody would be in that, but I think the dead zone and the grey zone are probably the areas where it'd be really worthwhile getting back to just understanding what's that unique product differentiation that you offer to your customers, and what is essentially, like, what are your customers responding to well? And so, like I said, I truly believe that product differentiation is probably the number one part. And then secondly, again, like, we can help a lot with improving operational excellence. I think reducing costs, especially when it comes to cloud spend, is something that we're really passionate about, and we really want to help and make sure that you run a really lean, effective infrastructure for your software product. And so I think that probably will be the biggest meaningful impact on that kind of rule of 40. So that probably would help you move up a little bit, and then at some point we can start thinking about how we move you right to that kind of growth level that you're expecting.
Yeah, awesome, good insight. Rad, I'm going to chuck it over to you. We touched a little bit about experimentation. Everyone obviously wants to experiment more, whether it's better tooling through experiment, confidence with customers, just being able to get that quicker insights. I guess looking at the data, we saw some people more tending to operate around the experimenting one time a month. But I'm keen to hear from you what you're seeing is working really well with customers, your own experiences there as well.
Yeah, and I agree what was said before as well. I think Mike spoke about, the cost of experimentation is quite critical, and if the cost of experimentation, if it takes too long to run that experiment, you're naturally just going to run less experiments. That's just simple math, right? So I think from my perspective, and we've done a bunch of research with chief product officers a couple of years ago, and what we found was that those that are innovating have figured out and experimenting have figured out a way to do lots and lots of experiments really, really cheaply, and also involve the customer into that experimentation so they have actual conclusive experiments and some data that they can actually make decisions off the back of. So I think, if you're going to have experimentation, and if you're going to have more experimentation within your organization, it's probably a few things. Doing it cheaply, having that data to make decisions, and obviously being able to surface that in front of your customer. I think, to the point of around, is once a month good enough? I think it depends. Like, if you're running an experiment and you've launched it, you've done A/B testing and you launched it to 2,000 of your customers and you have a conversion rate of 60% or something, you probably should just double down on that. Like, you should invest all your time in that. But if you're running experiments and you're not getting the insights and the data, I think initially you have to try and do as many experiments as possible, because that will actually grow that experimentation muscle. So it depends where you are in your journey, how big your team is, and all these other things.
I was just going to say something. I think at Amazon we have this quote where it says, failure and experimentation are inseparable twins, because you can't really, like, if you're experimenting and you know that that's going to work, then it's not really an experiment. Like, you should just go and do it. And so I guess also creating an organizational culture that allows for the failure of those experiments, so that it is fine to experiment and understand that, capture the data doesn't work, or we're going to move on, is not something that's deemed as failure. It's actually something that's encouraged, because I think that's how a lot of organizations can experiment better.
Yeah, certainly at Amazon, I think we've got a pretty good culture of experimentation. I certainly find it's the funnest part of the role. There's nothing about, getting your hypothesis, going out and testing that in a really scrappy way, and, seeing as if your result really worked, right? Remove your kind of bias and really kind of ensure that your product is really delivering that customer value. Deputy and Nemat, anything you want to kind of elaborate on that around, experimentation? You talked a little bit about the tooling, the trust, but I'm keen if you've got anything else on that. I think, one thing to think about is the axis of, Amazon talks about customer obsession, and that's a really good thing, right? To be focused on your customers, understanding their needs and doing that. But I think it is possible to get lopsided on that front. You can
you can become focused on reactive, superficial customer needs and forget about more deeply understanding what they're trying to do, which can lead to interesting experiments, right? So like if you're driven by, we had a customer response that says this, we had 10 of them that said this, and therefore we're going to build that thing now, and some tech guy who really deeply understands the customer and is trying to take us to a good place, like, I can't draw the line to the business value immediately. Like you can't haul every experiment over the coals with that really short term, but did a customer say that thing in mind? I think it's more important to make sure that the people who build things, they're meeting customers, they're thinking about what they're doing in that sort of longer range perspective, because then they come up with cool ideas that often, I think, tend to preempt what the product guys ask for, right? They're like, that must really suck as a customer to have that experience, and I wonder what we can do in that space, and then, eventually it comes to a head and all the customers are saying this is a problem. The tech guys have been thinking about it for a couple of years because they've been in those conversations that they've been just casually noodling and trying some things out. So, yeah, I think giving people some trust that you understand the customers deeply enough that will give you a bit of leeway on just go explore some things.
DB, anything from you?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of experimentation is sometimes the experiment doesn't line up with like timing, in that you might be early on an idea and the experiment, probably the hypothesis might be directionally correct, but the timing's not right. So it's a problem out there, but like you mentioned, the customers might not be asking for it today. So I think there's a big part of product judgment that has to also apply to experimentation. If you've got conviction around a concept, don't also let the experiment fizzle that out. Like, you want to get some reads on directionally, is this creating value? But just because the A/B test doesn't say it's going to grow 60% today, doesn't mean it's something to give up on. That might just calibrate the level of investment, or judgment matters a lot. So I think sometimes for experiments, it's key to understand what you're actually trying to experiment. Like, it's not just about seeing the numbers go up, but it might be about experimenting on, is this technology viable? It might be sometimes just about like technical viability. That's the only advice I would add, is like, it's not only about adoption all the time. It could be about, is this dream even realizable?
I guess it's really looking at the classics, right? Desirability, feasibility, and viability, making sure this isn't just a product or a feature that customers love, it's something that drives that value and actually drives revenue for the organization. Mike, I got a question for you. It's awesome that you've been in the game building AI features and functions for so long. There's a lot of hype around AI, and you've obviously gone into the different aspects there of kind of more or less from traditional kind of deep learning all the way to more generative AI and so forth. I guess, thinking about your product and that evolution from basic imagery to kind of more AI-powered insights, it shows a clear path to innovation, right? But I guess, how did you, when we think about investment, how do we think about that balance of kind of capabilities and, big data? There's so much opportunity. I think that during your presentation, I can't remember the exact words, but you used something like, we could deliver value to every customer, but we've kind of chosen these 5. I guess I'm kind of thinking, how do you guys contain yourself to not want to just jump into a new industry or vertical, right?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, I think in many ways our biggest challenge is there's so many opportunities. How do you not run so fast you fall over your own feet?
Yeah.
I think partly luck. Sorry.
Like it's always an strategy.
I mean, in terms of the way it's tracked the general trend in tech, the time when I was doing the earliest experiment with ML was the all-on growth time. And I got pretty much a blank check to just get in there and try. And we built our first beta data set. We processed, full coverage of Australia and US with AI. I don't know how many people use that data. We learned a heck of a lot. We were pushing AWS clusters beyond limits and all this. Like, we sort of leveled up our tech big time. Probably shouldn't tell you exactly how much we spent, but it was shockingly large. But that was a really important moment for us because we kind of leveled up. Then as we've moved in, like, we got bought off the ASX by a private equity firm a couple of years ago, and again, fortunately, that was just at the right time where, like, we'd already proven the use case. We had revenue coming in from AI as well as imagery. It was known that this stuff was valuable, and so now it's just more about let's be prudent around how we manage our investment. Yes, we've got a clear budget, but I've got clear budget line items for various forms of innovation and exploration, and I think we've established good trust with our board that we know what we're doing when it comes to R&D. We're focused on solving problems that actually matter for our customers. Like we're not out there publishing lots of papers, we're not doing vanity projects in tech where we're trying to do visionary things that will solve big problems for the customers. And yeah, I mean, there's balance, right? You just got to allocate an amount and say, yeah, work within those bounds. You can't give infinite, but you've got to give something.
And Deep, what about you? I mean, you showed the example of hospitality, but thinking about workforce planning and everything, opportunities are endless. What about your world?
Yeah, we're running experiments. Okay, we're trying to triangulate to 5, 6 experiments, the big bets we want to make every year. That might be a high technical risk, but we have got conviction for, and we similarly make sure we can fund them with meaningful enough team to get a read, and then we use that learning to then decide whether we should double down on it. So give it just enough funding to get enough of a read. And so that's what we're doing now. We have a few prototypes of Gen AI projects, things that we're building. We'll spend 4 to 6 months building a prototype, getting maybe 1 customer, 2 customers to use it, get a read on if there's something there, and then productionize it after.
Yeah.
And trying to run 3 to 5 of those a year of meaningful, medium-sized bets.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit more about your product, and obviously it's about optimizing the workforce there, and obviously now with the power of agentic AI, you showed that on screen, a little snippet into kind of the possibilities there. I'm interested to see how that's a little bit more about how that's going, right? You started building a product to optimize organizations and kind of really solving their problem as much as you're creating value yourself, but now really with the evolution of AI, how that's all coming about.
Yeah, we've been talking to a lot of our customers. Most of them don't want to spend time in front of the computer or the machine to do things. They want to set up policies and procedures for how their business should operate, and then delegate that work to something like an agent to make decisions on their behalf. Now, what we're learning is how accurate those delegatable tasks will be. Many businesses today are still approving timesheets one by one. They're looking at if the picture matches the person, if the geolocation was at the right place, if it's a full-time employee or part-time employee, their patterns in the past. So there's probably a way that you can describe that in a bunch of policies that your business has of what kind of timesheet looks like a good timesheet, what kind of employee looks like a trustworthy timesheet employee, and you're reviewing by exception rather than reviewing one by one. So we've seen a lot of appetite for it. We're just working through the technical risk of what's possible. But we think in the HR tech, a lot of work should be able to be delegated to an agent who can act on your behalf.
And then Mike, thinking about yours, complex product, 130 attributes was it within those deep learning models as well? Has there been kind of a shift there towards different approaches in AI there and kind of generative or agentic, or you're really kind of focusing on the deep learning aspect there?
Yeah, I mean, deep learning's been our core. So we've got the really custom semantic segmentation model, which I think is, if we had time, we'd publish papers on it, but we're too busy building stuff for customers, which is a fun place to be. I think something I spend a lot of time thinking around now is complexity for customers. When you give them so much data that is all really useful, and you see your most sophisticated customers, you're like, but you could do that, and they just don't have the bandwidth to do it all. That's where I think there's some really new, potential, exciting things. I mean, I deliberately didn't leap on the Gen AI bandwagon straight away. We were already doing serious AI, and until you've got a use case, play with it and use it internally for stuff. But my litmus test for kind of, if you're going to start a Gen AI project, if you can't describe the project without talking about Gen AI, then you got a problem, right? You got to almost ban Gen AI and agentic and whatever. If you can't describe the customer problem you're trying to solve and the technical architecture without, okay, there's this boring widget that, okay, we can deal with PDFs or whatever more easily, great. But if that should just be a widget in the thing you're trying to do. As soon as you're getting all excited about Gen AI and agentic stuff, you can very easily lose track of trying to do any sane or useful thing. So yeah, rip those out of your description. If there's nothing left, Go find something else.
Yeah, and both of you have talked about, compelling data products, thinking about how your product sits along other products or integrating with other products. One last question on this is like, how do you think about kind of creating and maintaining that moat? Because I think that as we become more data-led products to drive that growth and revenue opportunity, it's really around what's my moat? Like how do I continue to play in this space? So I don't know if there's anything you can think about sharing on that.
Yeah, I talked about in the piece around how important it is to drive profit for our customers. We view that is like a major reason people choose Deputy. Like all of our case studies and ROI talk to profit, and for us, like that's important for us because it's a propeller for growth. Because if we can help our customer save money, they're highly likely going to open their next location and their next location after that, and they become a more scalable business. And we generate revenue by per employee per month. So the more we can help our customers grow and get out of the way of their growth, the better it is for us. That is a big driver for us. So that's how a lot of what we think. We think of ourselves as a business growth enabler. And so we just got to help every business be the best version of itself. That's a big way we think about our kind of differentiation market.
I think you've got to, you have to keep moving. I mean, if you're in the AI space, you can talk about the AI arms race or whatever else. Like, it's constantly changing and evolving. And if you built, we built some really awesome semantic segmentation tech and crazy efficient, and it works really well. If you rest on your laurels there, then you're sunk, because things are going to come up and things are going to change. So you've got to be thinking ahead of the game in terms of your technical vision. So you've got to be technically obsessed as well as customer obsessed, thinking what's happening in my industry, what do I need to pay attention to so that I'm not stuck gold plating something that I don't really need to gold plate, but this new trend that I'm ready for it and I'm jumping on it. Because you take the pedal off and you stop, and you'll be obsolete in no time.
I like in both of that how you really just emphasis is like we're just solving customer problems. Whatever else is kind of going on is like as long as we solve customer and business problems, we will continue to grow. Rad and Gabs, anything from an AWS perspective you're kind of also seeing with customers on that? If you want to, Rad, you're looking like you're about to tune in on that.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing a lot of is also partnerships, and we kind of spoke about mergers and acquisitions, but I think partnerships are a key part to that as well, and partnering maybe with adjacent businesses to help your customers, we're seeing examples like also partnering with payments businesses, for example, to get the payments done right there on site, whatever that is, to really help the customer get paid and so on. So partnerships would be my only addition to that.
And thinking about partnerships, going back to your presentation, Gab, you talked about the global passport. Like, what are kind of the most common challenges you've seen customers face when they're entering new markets, right? Like, how has AWS helped them overcome that? You talked about the Canvas story, but yeah.
I think a really common observation, I guess, for organizations that are going to any location, but I'd say here in APJ, most of them are interested in going to the US. There's kind of, when you ask why did you pick the US in particular, there's not always a lot of reasoning behind. It's kind of like, well, everyone's doing that, so I guess I have to go to the US too. And so a lot of the times we really want to help with the readiness of actually expanding to a particular country, and Passport Program is one of the ways in which we can assess how ready you are to, I guess, move to a particular location, because it's not always the US, it's actually the logical step. We always sometimes hear that, founders or executive teams actually just want to live in Austin, or they just want to live in, San Fran.
Be where the coolness is.
Yeah, be where the cool is, but maybe, if you're selling in a completely different industry that's actually not located around Austin, then why would you base yourself and why would you open an office there? So I think, again, just understanding and having that research, where would you actually go? And it's not too dissimilar. If I was to make a personal move to another country, I would spend a bit of time understanding whether that's, suits me and what I want to achieve. So that's probably kind of the most common thing that we try to unpack, just to make sure that they have a good strategy in place on why they picked a particular location in a particular geo.
Yeah, and I think, where you're looking to solve the problem, that's where you need to go next, right? Really thinking about what the opportunity is. I know we're kind of at time and kind of thinking about it. Is there anything that anyone else wants to share before we kind of wrap things up here, or take the opportunity before we get everyone to make sure they share all of their feedback on the app, obviously. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a great opportunity. Hopefully you guys took a lot away, and I just really want to thank the customers and Gab and Rad for being up here as well.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Dane.
Thank you.